Welcome back to another CPaaSAA talk. My name is Rob Curver. I'm the founding partner of the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance. I'm sitting here with Sebastian Schumann of Deutsche Telekom and Martin Schönherr of awa.network. Great to have you guys back on a session, on a call. We did something about this a little bit earlier, but I think I'm really excited to talk now about the work that you guys have done to build basically your own CPaaS platform. So let's start there, Sebastian. What have you been building and why have you been building your own?
Yeah, good question. Thanks, Rob. So I'm in Deutsche Telekom working with the wholesale unit, and we are active in the aggregation business. We are providing voice termination, SMS termination, and a while ago we planned to go into CPaaS and to offer APIs for communications, which is really one of the services of telecom at heart. And we looked at various options. The options we looked at were more or less all focused in having a certain ownership of the service ourselves. So we were not really interested in pure reselling, because from our perspective, the competency and the learnings that we get by running it ourselves, not just reselling, are quite big. And on the other hand, from a pricing and value creation perspective, the idea is to move up in the value chain, really. So to participate in API business, but also to enable the business on top, and having a more or less stable base for that, and not really having to share these revenues and participate too much was the other motivation. And when we then looked for solutions, when we ran our RFQ, we looked for various options. We looked at cloud deployments. Back in the days, I was very focused as well on trying to make this work on US hyperscaler infrastructures. The big ones are known to everyone, I guess. But we figured that from a data management perspective, from a data privacy perspective, especially with German telecommunication law and other related aspects, we would either not be able to launch it or launch only something very in a very restricted way. And this went really as far as any of the providers we had that would have been doing this on hyperscalers. What we decided in the end is to do a twofold kind of setup. We have a partnership with SignalWire on this one. So they were in the end evaluated in the RFQ. They were able to run this out of Europe. On an infrastructure that is not a US-based hyperscaler. So it's really the data processing agreement is purely European. And on top of that, we needed, of course, a bit more than just the CPaaS engine. We were set as well for other wholesale services, for extending the portfolio. As I said, move up the value chain, offer more. And this part we decided to build in-house. Our own platform, our own enablement stack. Building in-house means in this case we have the ownership, we drive the product, and we work together with a software development company, integration partner, and this is why Martin is here. We have a bit of history, and it was just the right fit for us for this for the software layer on top.
Awesome. I love this whole approach that you, as you say, you want to move up in the value chain. So many telcos are just sort of happy with just being the infrastructure provider for the CPaaS, and that's been a discussion in the industry for years and years and years. And I know you have a background working on various approaches to that at Deutsche Telekom, and it's great to see what you're doing now. So Martin, from your point of view, where do you fit in the whole solution stack?
Yeah, as Sebastian just said, we've been working the telco space for, 20 years. And we add the software layer on top, right? There's a CPaaS solution in a compliance way, and we just add software that makes it more fitting to the use cases the customers need. I think Sebastian might discuss a little more, talk about that. It's difficult to sell APIs. To be honest, that's one issue. Let's say to business customers, they think in a different, universe, right? An API is something a developer could actually understand and consume, but of course you want to have a solution, whatever it is. So we are a service provider here, as a matter of fact, and so we develop what Sebastian just mentioned for the last more than 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And the product that is live at the moment out there with all its capabilities is kind of a combination of custom-made software and whatever components we actually could use to stay compliant and deliver the expected features. So that's the role here, right? So if we dive into, I might give some opinions and insights into how this is done as long as Sebastian goes first.
Yeah, let's first talk a little bit more about that say that the regulatory side. Sebastian, I mentioned. I mean, in Germany, there are very specific rules about that go further than typical European rules about data privacy and the regulatory. And in industries like verticals like government and financial, this is a crucial point. So as Deutsche Telekom, you're saying this, you really needed to build your own. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So on one hand, of course, you have what everyone knows, the abbreviation GDPR. So you have to be compliant when it comes to data. But as telecom, of course, as you mentioned, we serve all kinds of industries, and some industries have specific requirements, like the healthcare industry, which deals with very sensitive data. Very sensitive is not just figurative speech, but it's literally considered very sensitive data also in the law, where you have certain rules. You can also think of hotlines that you call when you have problems and you want to tell them what you worry about. And of course, the public sector also has to follow very strict requirements when it comes to data sovereignty and data handling. And in our case, these requirements in Germany are mostly in the law. If they are not explicitly in the law for all the industry, many of the other industries make an explicit requirement when selecting platforms, when selecting their partners. So we either had it internally as an implicit requirement for launching this. We had it externally seen in discussions with customers. So we said we need something that is compliant, that works. Compliant in this case means data processing agreement without any third countries. Let's make it like this. So it's not just the US, but primarily, of course, the hyperscalers are American companies. Even though you host in Germany, you are essentially with an American company. As a sub-processor, we have a service that doesn't have this, which is which is unique and sometimes a requirement. And on the other hand, of course, we have the rest of our stack. So we are the telco. We have the telecoms infrastructure that you need for that, the voice termination, voice trunks, the messaging termination. Everything is already set up in that way. So all we needed was add this software layer on top. CPaaS companies usually have the other challenge. They need to access to the telco part. They buy the telco parts all around and then use software best practices. We did it vice versa. And of course, you don't want to go into a Me Too game starting quite late as we did. So we looked at this regulatory requirements not as a pain that we have to follow because these are the rules, but as something of an opportunity. And I think that's quite important also from a mindset. So for us, having this stack and extending this stack also with platforms that follow the same criteria, giving you essentially an infrastructure that for some industries are, I think, quite unique in the way that they can use it. Yeah, if a healthcare company wants to use a CPaaS provider, they don't have that many choices. Of course, we are not directly going after the business as wholesale organization. We enable other carriers, but this independence exactly allows us to enable carriers in country to go out there with carrier propositions, not having to differentiate their segments, and really having a solution that is sovereign when it comes to Europe. That also means it's technically deployable elsewhere as well. We're not depending on the location of the clouds. We can work with others technically that have similar requirements and bring that stack there if we were to expand. That's not the case yet. But again, having a stack that is not dependent on cloud resources and on interacting with cloud resources, but you use the components themselves, was for us quite important. Yeah, a side effect is, of course, if we look at SignalWire a bit, they in the end use FreeSwitch, which is again open source software stack used in many if not all CPaaS companies out there. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We partner where it makes sense, but it's important to have solutions that are on one hand leading, on the other hand giving you the flexibility you have. And as mentioned back in the days, we found that partner with SignalWire. We have AWA making it all work. So in the end, we have a telecom proposition that telecom can sell that is compliant, that follows all the rules, and in the end turns it into a unique selling point for many of the carriers and many of the direct customers we have using that solution.
I like how you said we already have the telco infrastructure and we just needed to add a bit of software on top. Martin, just a little bit of software on top, and you mentioned that enterprises don't really buy APIs, right? That's a discussion that's been going on for a long time. Enterprises, at the end of the day, they see the value of the APIs, but they need a lot of help to build the applications that really fit their IT, etc. So can you give an example of maybe a customer or a problem or something that you could solve specifically because you have your own basically control over all this technology, all the software?
Well, maybe first you ask me, right? That's so basically what is I want to highlight what Sebastian said. The telcos usually sit on the let's call it the raw material, right? So it's the numbers, it's the zip trunks, the SMS trunks, etc. For ages, right? International connectivity, interoperability, you name it, right? So this very old established industry sits on everything that CPaaS is selling. CPaaS is selling it like, let's take Twilio, right? It's the usual suspect, right? But any other CPaaS too, right? So it basically takes the same things, buys it from the telcos, right? Because how could you get any international connectivity not going via the trunks, right? So it is a software layer at the end of the day. And the question is, the question is, how much of features would you put into it and who is the target group? Twilio was the big example of how to enable developers, right, as the target group, right? They are able to sell it to actual technical people. Now the telcos do not have any connection to developers, right? It's not established and it is not existing, right? Yeah. I know that some people might argue in a different way, but as a matter of fact, being from that part of the world, right, you'd never think of a telco if you think about an API, right? So and that's a problem. As a matter of fact, if the telcos now wake up and think, sorry, wake up always sounds like is a little late, but as Sebastian already mentioned, it is quite late. CPaaS is around for quite some time. And now the telcos have connections to other kind of people, right? Let's say big companies, business, corporates, B2B, right? Yeah. And they go for other things than a Swagger or an open API description of, an endpoint, how to use it.
There is that trusted relationship, right, between the large enterprises and the telcos they've been doing business with for at least 100 years. And it's always been sort of the challenge that where does the software come from? And the telcos have been maybe waiting a little bit too much there.
So we had a challenge here that there's a gap, right? There's a gap between, actually the telco sits on all the raw material where other software companies make a lot of money with it, right? No. And so that gap is the interesting space, I would say. And then how to enable a carrier that actually is very good in addressing business customers, right? With, so let's call it solutions. I don't have a better word for that, but it's a solution or a use case, right? Saying, I don't know, I need a call center.
Can you give me an example from your experience in the last 1 or 2 years building this, where you could really service an enterprise customer with this stack and being able to add specific value?
So maybe one word from me, and I guess Sebastian is better than...
I can talk about a customer since it's ours, yeah.
Let me finish the thought, right? Like we do sit on multiple, let's say, APIs that represent, that goes via different paths, right? That the numbers come from here and the connectivity and voice comes from there and the messaging come from another place. The thing is you can try to sell this like separately, but the customers will not go the extra effort to understand the different directions and then build something on top that combines this into their use case, right? And so what we now actually planned and deployed and implemented to the public now is that approach that is close to CPaaS, right? But it comes with a little more for the carrier business, because Usually it's about billing, it's about bundling, it's a lot of things that that is under the hood, right? So it's not only APIs, it's much more than this. And now I hand over to Sebastian with the example.
For the customer, exactly. So we obviously, one of the questions to customers, we cannot really disclose all the customers we have, but we have also announced that last year the whole platform we have a reference customer. It's called a company called Virtual Queue. That is a company based in Germany that offers essentially to optimize call center flows. So whenever call distribution in a call center reaches limits when it comes to available agents, they're essentially scheduling callbacks. They were a company that so what Martin now said is exactly a good point. They were not really developers, but they were educated in how to use CPaaS. So they use CPaaS. They use a big CPaaS provider. They're the biggest customer around in using that CPaaS provider, but they clearly had a gap in the customers they could address, and also to some extent in when it came to expansion out of Germany in the numbers and the aspects on the connectivity that they needed. So what we could solve for them were being able to address the healthcare sector and the public sector. So this was the first thing they couldn't do with the others. And what made it much easier for them to work with a telco in all of this is that we could, of course, we have different, maybe different insights, not necessarily different ways, but different insights in rules in other countries, in how to get numbers, how to make certain use cases work on an international level with a company based in one country, serving as their customer, a company in another country, doing business in a third country. So all of the differences here helped us in the end to provide them solution elements, and in the end was a driver why they chose us. Now, they did not need to decide to go with us and skip their current provider. We do have an API that is compatible to some of the large ones out there. It follows Twilio's format, which is, I guess, what many other providers, at least some of the big ones, Telnix had it for a while, and SignalWire obviously has it. They have a kind of compatible interface. We do also have a bit more modern API, but due to the fact that we had this API that was comparable to Twilio's, what they could do is they could run a dual stack operation in a way. So they could use us, they could see how we work, they could use their relying partner, a good partner as well. I mean, they're also a customer as well on another side, but differently steer traffic for the different requirements of the customer. That's an example of where you have somebody who knows about CPaaS, who knows what they're buying, and who looks for specific things, and all of these things we could tick mark. And I would say there would not be any other carrier in the area that could really tick mark these things, and that were important for them. The other aspect is when it comes back again to the developers. So when I was in the meetings with our customers or with their customers, since we are not going after B2B, but when I'm generally in meetings about CPaaS in the telco world, but also those where telcos might go after at the moment, it's not the early adopters that you can approach technically, but it's those that may need CPaaS, but they may not even know they need CPaaS. So they have use case, they have a problem. They want to send an SMS to customers. They want to run a campaign and call them, but if they ask a technical question, they might ask you where to put the SIM card. Now they do all of this with a computer, let's say. Yeah, but it's not really that they look for APIs being able to do that. And even if you say you have the APIs and they might understand what that is, then they will say, hey, this is great. I have a set of other APIs. Let's then put them together and solve our problem. And we are very often in a situation that this was quite exciting for me, but I was very often at a point where I said, great, let's go ahead. And then the question was where to put it together, how to put it together. Does the customer have an environment where to put it together? Does he have developers? If he would have developers, if we even say, hey, let's build something, does he have somebody who operates this platform putting these APIs together? And this is where we were usually stuck. So we had all the capabilities that were needed. A lot of use cases are about communication. That's true for very old use cases, but it's also true for all the AI-driven use cases. AI voice bots and other things and integrations and whatnot. A lot is about communication, and it's about integrating it with other stuff, because you don't just communicate. And if you're also not just communicating between people, but very often there is an application endpoint. So essentially what the carriers understand as A2P, which is usually SMS. You do now A2P for voice, you do P to A, you do P to A2P, and all these things, you do exciting stuff, but it's also very similar to the old stuff, but without this integration platform, we figured we have a gap. It's not that the gap isn't addressed out there. There are companies that help you do this. You could write your own software, but if you want to sell this, if you want to drive as a carrier CPaaS, we found it very hard if this is not in your offer, because you need, enterprises may not have developers. They may not have operational teams who can run a very tiny piece of code somewhere in the cloud. So we figured we need something. The other aspect, again, mentioning our stack and our philosophy, we needed, of course, something that fits in from a compliance perspective. We couldn't have a piece of software or a partnership that is then again running in the public cloud or provided by non-European companies, or be very complex for us as a reseller in the end. And that's why we also decided here to extend our own stack with these integration capabilities, meaning you get CPaaS from us, you get the integration capabilities, you have all the tool sets in the toolbox now to move up the value chain. We're not providing concrete services. We don't believe we are able to build the most innovative service out there, that one particular one. We leave that to our partners like Virtual Queue. We leave that to customers, but we need to have more than the APIs in order to sell into the demand that you have. And the big businesses, or a lot of the businesses in the SME market that is looking now for CPaaS, that didn't look 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but they are looking now. They may not even articulate CPaaS. They may always articulate a use case, and we wanted something we can address this use case with. So this is the kind of, long story short, we have customers that need the USPs. We figured when we talk to the segment that our resellers will address, we need more than just the APIs, and this is why we have this combination of API, of workflow automation engine with our APIs integrated, by the way, with other telecom services integrated as well. You have identity, you have as well an LLM that is provided by Deutsche Telekom, that is operated in a way that is more compliant for many of these use cases. This is not offered by us, this is just integrated, but essentially from Deutsche Telekom overall, you have a stack of applications that we figured are important enough to have in that integration platform, and in that reseller proposition that we have, that we go after our target segments that are not the end customers, but that we need to enable to sell products to the end customers. And it's much easier to sell these products, to sell solutions, even though you're not selling solutions, you're selling a very easy way to a solution with all the technical components that you need to get started quickly, to catch up because it's late. We've heard that now often enough. So you need something fast to catch up. You want it uncomplicated. By the way, we're also solving some of the aspects, Martin mentioned it, like billing, like low IT integration, because we know how hard it is, if not impossible, to get IT resources in telco. So our stack does everything up to the generation of invoices of billing data with rated CDRs. So all our customers that use the platform for reselling they get these rated CDR records, put it in their billing engine and print the invoices. But everything before that, all the heavy lifting, all the product definition, all the other stuff is also available in the portal, simply because as a telco we know the pain, and we cannot approach peers and other companies for that reselling option that wouldn't have this. It's not relevant for CPaaS itself. The CPaaS proposition, of course, is like many other propositions as well from a functional point of view, but for the reselling piece, that part was also important.
I love the whole story, and I look forward to hearing a bit more at our event next month, CASA 25, where you'll be as well. One final question, because you're in wholesale, right? And it's clear that you're making this platform for others to resell, basically. Do you think that this makes sense for other European telcos to also adopt and to do business with you?
Definitely, I think it makes sense. So I think it's not an either or. So as mentioned, the CPaaS ecosystem out there, I think is a good one. You have many players, many are our customers. We provide connectivity to them. So this is important, as well as our partnerships. Telecom also partners with other providers. But I believe in the mix of solutions you need to have a provider that can satisfy either because it's required by law, or because your customers may have these requirements. And we see very often as well customers, not even from reselling perspective, but you're looking for a CPaaS platform where they are very close to the traffic, where the traffic originator is very close to the telco, so as little as possible intermediary. So I think these two aspects, the fact that we bring all that, I think it should be adopted. Of course, we would be happy, and of course, that's why we did it, to enable other players, to enable as well solutions that are made of multiple applications. By the way, that's also one thing how we are kind of embracing the competition, if you wish, because in our integration platform that we have live, we have other platforms integrated as well. So if you're on a Twilio, if you're on a Vonage, if you're on an Infobip, in the integration platform, you can add these technically as well, because they are part of the stack that is out there. Of course, we differentiate. We believe we differentiate enough that for many use cases we are going to be the better ones. Yeah, I would be wrong to say anything else. I believe we have the best connectivity for a good price, and feature-wise we are very much on par. But there are reasons to go with other providers, and I think the mix is the important thing. I think it's a lot either or. It's a lot saying we need to change, but change doesn't happen overnight. You need to have that mix. Also, as a telco, you need to start understanding the use case. You need to learn. You need to evolve. You can either run your voice business until it dies and then you switch it off, or you need to change. Yeah, you either sell SMS until you don't sell them anymore, or you transform, and you need to transform with the customer. You cannot transform from a technical ivory tower, building the latest greatest standard and wait for adoption, or say we are the telco. We have to. So this hasn't worked for RBM, even though it's now taking off finally, but it took way too long. It hasn't worked for that. CPaaS would be the wrong thing to now wait for standardization, other things, I believe. So I think having a solutions that follows industry's best practices from the big ones out there that were the forerunners and that are still out there, that embraces a modern technology stack. We talk WebSockets here, we talk other stuff. We talk AI support as well, so we don't have just APIs, we have as well AI integration layer available, and then powered by our connectivity, by the connectivity of Europe's biggest telco, a large telco, a lot of direct connectivities. Don't want to make it an advertisement, but you can even bring your own connectivity if you want. Yeah, that's also something that many partners don't allow you. You have to take their CPaaS, you have to take their connectivity. So the fact that we have all of that, I think, are good reasons why to consider us in the mix. We know the ecosystem. We are also not harmful to the ecosystem. We always look in healthy partnerships. We are not saying Twilio is bad, use us, because we also want to have that traffic. We're just saying we have a proposition out there that may supplement what you have already, and in that kind of triangle between the customer, the old suppliers, us as a telco who power the old supplier, I think a telco owning that stack, having the expertise, having people inside that know about this, having development partners outside that are experts in telco development as well. I think this mix is a good one to work with, to partner with, and I guess that's also what we should then discuss a bit in Amsterdam again, like the panels last year. There were established players, there were players who do CPaaS on a much larger scale than we do, but I believe even though we have a big name, the approach we're taking here is also an interesting addition to that mix, because some of the learnings and some of the problems we have, it resonates with the others, it even resonates with the competition. So I think it's certainly useful to talk about this and consider it in your mix if you're a telco in Europe or elsewhere. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's clear that you're very passionate. You did turn it into a little bit of an advertisement here at the end, I think. But I think but I think really you should, because you built something that's really differentiated. And I'm with you that it's an ecosystem, right? There's no winner takes all in the world of CPaaS, especially not with all the developments going so quickly. You mentioned AI. We talked about it for very short time, but there's so much happening and changing in this industry, and I just love seeing the telco with their partners stepping up and taking, say, an active role, responsibility, not just in a resell, but a develop and a co-develop role. So it's great. I love getting this feedback, this update here from you guys. I look forward to talking to you again in more detail next month, and until then, happy building, I would say, because I think there's still a couple of things to do in this exciting space. Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Sebastian, for being here, and
thanks, guys.
See you soon.
See you.
Bye bye. Ciao.